So this is the DJI Avata, and first things first is give credit where it's due, and huge thanks and shout out to DroneWorks, Zach, Ken Original Dobo for sending me over this Avata from DJI. If you don't know my story already, I lost my FPV drone into the ocean in Dominican Republic due to some sort of failsafe, and couldn't really get it out. You can watch the video here if that's what you're interested in watching to learn more about how that happened. But today we're going to be talking about the FPV drone overall, my first impressions, and again, the service that DroneWorks provided over to me, not because of my relationship with Ken, but more because of what they stand for over at DroneWorks, which is customers, clients first. So first things first, let's talk about the FPV drone and what my first impression is overall. This is my first flight here today. Took it for a nice little cruise around this park, really in between trees and ducks. And the first thing that I noticed, huge standout, that I want to call the attention to immediately in my video, is the fact that this thing is not loud at all. If you fly any sort of FPV drone, you know that first off, any ducted cinewhoop is going to be relatively louder. But this drone, this Avata, this cinewhoop, is in line in terms of sound with any other cinewhoop that I've ever flown and have heard. So today I'm flying the ProTech 35 with me here as well. And I have to say that this is right at the same noise level, if not slightly quieter than the ProTech 35. So I'm not sure why multiple people online, they're up in an uproar, like, oh my God, this wakes up all the Karens. Oh man, this is so loud. It's not loud at all. It's a cinewhoop. It's supposed to be slightly louder. I think the issue here is that we're comparing this from a sound perspective to a camera GPS drone, and that's expected, right? This is gonna be louder than that. But when you compare it to FPV drones overall, this thing is right in line. The second thing I want to talk about is durability. So, wow, this thing is durable. I wish I had some footage to show you, but let me tell you about the disaster I took this thing through on my first flight. So first flight up, one of the things right out the box is you gotta adjust your rates a little bit because I think it's a little too twitchy and a little too over the place. So when I first launched it, I was flying it, felt really jittery, and I said to myself, let me see how it handles a roll or a dive. Not a dive, a roll or a flip. And when I did the roll, it did it well, but when I tried to do a flip, I kind of lost orientation a bit. It might have been my fault, but the drone definitely didn't like it. It kind of like stuttered, and then I went straight down, did a nosedive right into concrete at an office park that I was at, and the battery ejected, and overall the drone came back perfectly fine. Nothing was damaged. The SD card was corrupted from the impact. Can't format it, can't retrieve the footage, so that's why I can't show you the footage. But the thing handled excellent. I mean, if this was the FPV drone and I took a crash into the concrete like that, you better believe that I wouldn't have an FPV drone to really show you anymore. But this thing is very durable. So with that being said, highly, highly recommended to anybody that really wants to fly FPV. Now, the signal is second to none. That's the third thing I want to talk about. That's the signal penetration. I'm using the V2 goggles that came with the DJI FPV drone, and the signal penetration that I'm getting with this and the clarity is amazing. I mean, by far so much better than the FPV drone, by far so much better than an air unit or a Caddx. So that it wins, as well as with signal penetration, not only on your video, but also your RC. The penetration is absolutely unbelievable. I mean, I took it to almost the end of this park where the woods is, and I was about 40 megabits on my transmission. So didn't really suffer any consequences there. So now that we kind of covered my first impressions on the drone overall itself, let's talk about the actual drone and the flight characteristics. So the Avata is a cinewhoop. Another major complaint I am hearing all over the internet and YouTube is that this thing doesn't fly like the FPV drone. This thing is much slower. Why doesn't it go faster? With a Cine, you really want to, go ahead and fly very cinematic. You want to fly, you want to have a methodical flight path, and you really want to take your time flying a Cine. A Cine is not to go ahead and fly at 300 feet in the air. Is not a quad to do acrobatic maneuvers like flips and rolls like I tried and took a nosedive into the concrete. This Avata is really for cinematic purposes, and I think 60 miles per hour, 40 is enough. 40 to 60 miles per hour, even 30 if you're going to be flying in normal mode or sports mode. There is no need, in my perspective, in my opinion, to be flying at 80 miles per hour with a Cine. First of all, just the wind and all that noise back to the drone is really going to make it suffer. One of the other things that I noticed is that with slight wind, you will get pushed around with the Avata, and that's normal just again because of the design. This is my first pusher style quad. What I could tell you is that this is not a pusher. This is the iFlight ProTech 35, and this is a pusher. I felt like I had more control with this, with the Avata. Maybe it's because of the pusher style versus the ProTech. I felt like the Avata was more fluid and more floaty versus the ProTech. You really have to understand throttle control and really manage the throttle stick in order to really coast in a straight line and not, be bouncing up and down as you're doing your flight. So let's go ahead and let me show you a flight with the iFlight 35, and then we're going to go ahead and do a flight with the ProTech 35. Really a short, quick flight, just so you can see the difference with the GoPro. This is a GoPro Hero 9 with the standard color profile. And then the Avata, I have no ND filter. It's 4K 60 with a standard color profile as well. And then we'll come back for some conclusions on this first flight. Okay, how was that footage? The ProTech 35 with a GoPro Hero 9 and the Avata. Well, let me give you just some initial thoughts as I flew both, right? So the top reason why you want to buy the Avata is you don't have to mount a GoPro. Battery is much longer than a LiPo on an FPV drone. Signal penetration, video penetration, second to none, world class here. Why you want to fly or buy a ProTech? If you need more authority in the air, if you need more thrust, if you need more power, if you need more agility, this thing beats this hands down. Now, for the type of footage that we are recording, even professionals, I would say, cinematics, a little bit more slow pace, having fun, for YouTube, for Instagram, for TikTok, for Vero, all these social media platforms, I think the Avata beats any Cinewhoop out there, hands down, 100 times. And that is because, again, this thing is so light. The camera quality is unbelievable. The signal that's going back to your goggles and just the overall camera quality on the files. I mean, look at this footage, look at this flight. This is in a normal color profile. This is everything on auto ISO, auto shutter, no ND filter. This camera was a huge improvement from the first DJI FPV camera. I mean, I'm getting better dynamic range now on the Avata than any other camera. Now, does it beat a GoPro? In my opinion, no. I think a GoPro still looks slightly a little bit better. I had this conversation with Ken, Original Dobo, and he says that's because we like the saturation and the contrast, and we are sort of accustomed to it on the GoPro. And that's why, you know, I think, and we overall think, that a GoPro might look a little bit better. And I agree with that statement. Now, when you talk about dynamic range, which is better, I think that the GoPro still has a little bit better dynamic range, and you have more flexibility in post to do your grading versus the Avata. Based on what I'm seeing online, right? I haven't really tried it for myself. My buddy Ray and I, we did a chase where I was flying the Avata and Ray was flying the ProTech, and then we switched vice versa. I was flying the ProTech and he was flying the Avata, and both things that we could agree on is I wish that DJI included some sort of lights, LEDs in the back of the Avata. The LEDs would have been a nice touch to see your drone when you're, you know, with your visual observer, and also for like a chase, right? So the ProTech 35 has two small LEDs here in the rear, and they're extremely bright. LEDs are bright overall, and that would have been just a nice touch on the Avata, which would have addressed many different opportunities, such as, you know, keeping visual line of sight by your visual observer, and also on a cinematic cruise or a cinematic chase when you're out there having fun with your friends. Just wanted to mention that. All right, let's take a quick look as to what is included when you buy the standalone Avata. This is the box that it comes in. When you open the box, obviously you have the Avata there is the first thing that's included, with a battery. You have your gimbal guard here, which is by means one of the easiest gimbal guards to install out of all the drones that DJI releases. Then your Avata comes in just a little bag. You have one set of props. You get one battery included. It's a 4S battery. You get a little brick to charge your battery, where you just connect it here as such. And then you also receive a USB-C cable, and you just have to plug in the USB-C and you are all set. That's what's included in a standard bundle with the Avata, just the Avata standalone. And to install the battery is actually very simple and easy to do. And here is your DJI Avata. Now, in conclusion, overall with the Avata, am I satisfied? Absolutely. I was gonna bite my tongue and say why, and the number one thing that was gonna come out of my mouth was the sense of safety and security, but I no longer could say that about DJI, you know why. But just overall, I can say yes, this is a buy, because of the features that you're getting with it. When you think about FPV and how DJI transformed the FPV hobby, I mean, with the ProTech, like I mentioned a little earlier, you gotta get a GoPro, you gotta mount a GoPro, you gotta tune. If you break something, you gotta repair it. You gotta repair this too, but it's just much easier, I think. The LiPo batteries, charging the LiPos. If you're traveling, what do you wanna carry? Do you wanna carry this and this, or do you just wanna carry your Avata and your FPV remote? I will always vote by the Avata and the FPV remote. So this is my first flight of many. Stick around for some additional videos. And lastly, I want to end the video by again talking about DroneWorks. So DroneWorks currently has the Avata in stock. They also have a bundle and several other customizable bundles, which includes the FPV remote. You want to fly this with the FPV remote. The motion controller is cool, but that's just a toy in my opinion. Like, go ahead and do things the right way. If you're gonna learn FPV, this is the drone to get. Start out by practicing in the simulator, start out by flying this in normal and sports mode, and then, you know, once you build up your confidence and you kind of get the hang of it, go ahead and take it for a spin in manual mode with that remote. Go ahead and crash. It is normal to crash an FPV drone, and I almost guarantee you that you can beat this thing so many times and this thing will not break on you. I mean, it is built extremely well in my opinion. It is extremely light. I think it can take a hard hit just like I did, and you'll be perfectly fine. And the reason why you want to buy a DroneWorks is because they are a small company in Florida that actually cares about their clients. They care about the community. I am a testament to that. And that's where we should support our small businesses, right? Where they give back to the community. So again, thank you, Zach. And if you guys have any questions about the Avata or anything about what's listed on DroneWorks, go ahead and drop it in the comments below, and I'll make sure that myself, Ken, or even Zach comments back and addresses any of your questions or concerns. But until next time, guys, peace.